There are stories that settle deep within you, not because of their gruesome details, though those often exist, but because of the questions they leave behind. These are the cases that linger in the public consciousness, the ones where the trail goes cold, not with a whisper, but with a resounding silence that itself seems to cry out for answers. We look at the faces of the missing, the victims, their families, and we feel a pull, a need to understand what happened, to piece together the fragments of a shattered narrative. It's a human instinct, this desire for closure, for justice, for the simple, undeniable truth. Today we're not just recounting events. We're stepping into the heart of these enduring mysteries. These are more than just case files, they are the lived experiences of individuals whose lives were irrevocably altered, whose stories became cautionary tales, whispered in hushed tones. We're going to explore 5 such cases, each one a chilling testament to the fact that sometimes, despite our best efforts, despite advances in technology and forensic science, the truth can remain stubbornly out of reach. These are the stories that defy easy explanation, the ones that keep investigators, and us, awake at night. What connects these disparate lives, these tragic events? It's the profound sense of the unknown, the chilling realization that darkness can descend so suddenly, so completely. We'll delve into the details, the timelines, the theories, but more importantly, we'll try to understand the human cost of these unsolved puzzles. Join me as we navigate these unsettling narratives, seeking not just to know what happened, but to feel the weight of what remains unsaid, unheard, and unexplained. This is a journey into the shadows, where every clue is a ghost, and every theory a path that might lead nowhere, or perhaps a little closer to understanding. Adrienne Salinas. Just 19 years old, a student at Gateway Community College in Arizona. She had her whole life ahead of her, dreams and aspirations just beginning to take shape. You picture her, perhaps, walking across campus, books in hand, contemplating her future, unaware of the darkness that loomed so close. It's these ordinary beginnings that make the subsequent events all the more jarring, all the more difficult to comprehend. How does someone so full of life simply vanish, leaving behind only a chilling void and a family desperate for answers? The Arizona desert. It's a landscape of stark beauty, vast and unforgiving. During the day, the sun beats down relentlessly, but at night it transforms into something else. A place of shadows, of hidden dangers, a place where secrets can be easily swallowed by the immense silent expanse. It was into this landscape that Adrienne seemingly disappeared. One moment she was part of the vibrant fabric of student life, and the next, she was gone. The initial reports, the first few days of her absence, you can imagine the growing panic, the calls to friends, the slow dawning horror for her family. What were her last known movements? Who did she speak to? These are the questions that investigators would have grappled with, sifting through her life, her routines, her relationships, looking for any clue, any anomaly that might point them in the right direction. Did she have plans that day that no one knew about? Was she meeting someone? Or was it a chance encounter, a random act of violence that pulled her away from everything she knew? The desert offers few easy answers. It guards its secrets well. Months passed. Months of agonizing uncertainty for Adrienne's loved ones. Every phone call, every knock on the door, a potential harbinger of news, good or bad. The hope that she might be found alive, perhaps disoriented but safe, would have dwindled with each passing day, replaced by a grim foreboding. The community, her fellow students, they too would have felt the chill of her absence, a reminder of a vulnerability that no one likes to acknowledge. The search efforts, the posters, the pleas for information, all part of a desperate attempt to pierce the silence. And then, the discovery. Her body, found in that same unforgiving desert. The news that every family in this situation dreads, yet in some ways prepares for. But the discovery of her remains didn't bring closure, not really. Instead, it opened up a new, more painful chapter. The quest for justice, the need to understand how and why. The desert had given up one of its secrets, but the full story remained locked away, a tormenting puzzle with crucial pieces missing. The investigation into her death would have intensified, the focus shifting from a missing person case to a homicide. Forensic evidence, if any remained after months in the harsh desert environment, would have been meticulously examined. Were there signs of a struggle? What was the cause of death? Each detail, however small, could be the key to unlocking the mystery. But sometimes, the desert erases traces as effectively as any human hand. The elements can be an unwilling accomplice to those who wish to hide their crimes. Who would want to harm Adrienne Salinas, a young student just starting her adult life? Was it someone she knew? A friend, an acquaintance, someone with a hidden motive, a secret grudge? Or was it a stranger, a predator lurking in the shadows, seizing an opportunity? The questions multiply, each one branching off into a dozen more possibilities, a dozen more dead ends. Investigators would have explored every avenue, interviewed countless individuals, trying to find that one inconsistent statement, that one piece of information that didn't quite fit. The pain for her family is unimaginable. A constant ache that time doesn't heal, only dulls around the edges. They are left with the what-ifs, the whys, the ghost of a life unlived. They carry the burden of her memory, and the enduring hope that one day someone will come forward, that the person responsible will be held accountable. For them, Adrian isn't just a case file. She's a daughter, a sister, a friend, whose life was stolen. The case of Adrian Salinas remains unsolved, a chilling testament to the fact that sometimes, despite all efforts, justice remains elusive. The desert holds its secrets close, and Adrian's story is one of them. It's a stark reminder of the darkness that can exist just beyond the periphery of our everyday lives, a darkness that can swallow a bright young life without a trace, leaving only questions and sorrow in its wake. What does it take to solve a case like this after so much time has passed? A new piece of evidence, a technological breakthrough, a pang of conscience from someone who knows something. These are the hopes that keep cold cases alive, the faint glimmers in the overwhelming darkness. For Adrian and for her family, that hope, however faint, must endure. The silence surrounding her death is deafening, but perhaps one day it will be broken. We are left to ponder the fragility of life, the cruelty of fate, and the enduring mystery that surrounds Adrian's final moments. Her story is a somber echo in the vastness of the Arizona desert, a silent scream for answers that have yet to come. It's a case that challenges us, that forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that some crimes defy explanation, leaving behind only a legacy of unanswered questions and unending grief. Joshua Guo was 20 years old, a student at St. John's University. Like Adrian, he was at that pivotal stage of life, full of potential, navigating the complexities of young adulthood and higher education. He was described by those who knew him as bright, perhaps a little introverted, someone who had a life mapped out, or at least, was in the process of charting his course. His disappearance is a stark reminder that the perceived safety of a college campus can be an illusion, that danger can intrude even in places dedicated to learning and growth. The last time anyone saw Joshua, he was leaving a dorm party. It's a common scene on any college campus. Students unwinding, socializing, the sounds of music and laughter spilling out into the night. What happened after he walked away from that party? Did he intend to go back to his room? Did he have other plans? The ordinariness of his last known moments makes his subsequent vanishing all the more unsettling. He stepped out of that party and into a mystery that endures to this day. One of the most perplexing elements in Joshua's case is his computer. It was found to have been tampered with. This detail opens up a myriad of questions. Who accessed his computer and why? Were they trying to find something, or were they trying to erase something? In our digital age, a person's computer is often an extension of their mind, holding their thoughts, their communications, their secrets. The tampering suggests a deliberate act, an attempt to control the narrative or conceal involvement. Was Joshua involved in something online that put him at risk? The digital world, vast and often anonymous, can be a dangerous place. Was he communicating with someone who wished him harm? Or did the tampering occur after his disappearance, an attempt by an unknown party to muddy the waters, to divert the investigation? The computer, which should have been a source of clues, became another layer of the enigma, a silent witness that had been compromised. The investigation into Joshua's disappearance would have been incredibly complex. With no body, no crime scene in the traditional sense, investigators are left piecing together a life, looking for any fissure, any point of entry for whatever or whoever caused him to vanish. His friends, his family, his professors, all would have been interviewed, their recollections scrutinized for any detail that might shed light on his state of mind, his recent activities, or any unusual encounters. Imagine the anguish of his parents, his family. A young man away at university, suddenly gone without a trace. The calls to his phone going unanswered, the growing dread, the endless cycle of hope and despair. For them, Joshua isn't just a missing person statistic, he's their son, a vibrant individual whose absence leaves an unfillable void. They are left in a cruel limbo, unable to mourn, unable to move on, clinging to the hope that he might one day return. What theories have emerged over the years? Did he choose to disappear to start a new life? While possible, the tampered computer suggests otherwise, pointing towards a more sinister explanation. Was he the victim of foul play, his disappearance orchestrated by someone he knew, or perhaps a stranger? The lack of concrete evidence allows speculation to flourish, each theory more troubling than the last. The silence surrounding his fate is heavy, oppressive. The digital footprints he left behind, social media activity, emails, search history, would have been meticulously analyzed, assuming they weren't completely erased by whoever tampered with his computer. Were there any coded messages, any indications of distress, any clues hidden in plain sight? Sometimes the answers are there, buried deep within the data, waiting for the right eyes, the right technology to uncover them. But in Joshua's case, the digital trail seems to have gone as cold as the physical one. Years have passed, and Joshua Guo remains missing. His case is a haunting example of how someone can simply vanish from a seemingly secure environment, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and digital ghosts. The university campus, once a place of promise for him, is now marked by the shadow of his disappearance. His friends have graduated, moved on with their lives, but the memory of Joshua and the mystery of what happened to him undoubtedly lingers. For investigators, a case like Joshua's is a persistent challenge. Without new leads, without new evidence, the investigation can stall, becoming a cold case that gnaws at the conscience. But they don't give up. They revisit the files, re-interview witnesses, hoping that time might have loosened someone's tongue, or that a new perspective might reveal a previously overlooked clue. The search for Joshua is a marathon, not a sprint, fueled by the hope of providing answers to his grieving family. Joshua Guo's story is a chilling reminder of the unknown. He walked out of a party and into a void, his computer a tainted well of potential information. What secrets did it hold? What secrets does his disappearance still hold? These are questions that echo in the silence, a silence that his family, and those who seek justice for him, are desperate to break. His face on a missing person poster is a constant, heartbreaking plea for information, for a resolution that has yet to materialize. Chapter 3. A family erased, a daughter found, the Klaus case. The story of the Klaus family begins in 1980, a time before the internet, before widespread DNA technology reshaped forensic science. Dean and Tina Klaus, a young couple with a baby daughter named Holly, were embarking on a new chapter in their lives. They were moving from Florida to Texas, full of hope and dreams for their future, for their little family. It's a familiar narrative, one of youthful optimism, and the pursuit of a better life. But their journey took a devastatingly dark turn. They packed their belongings, said their goodbyes, and set off. And then, they vanished. Not just one person, but an entire family unit, Dean, Tina, and baby Holly. Imagine the confusion, the growing alarm among their relatives back in Florida. Weeks turn into months, and there's no word, no postcard, no phone call. In an era without cell phones or social media, a disappearance like this could create a profound and terrifying silence, a void that families struggled to comprehend or fill. For decades, the fate of the Klaus family remained a painful mystery. What could have happened to them? Did they encounter trouble on the road? Did they choose to sever ties and start anew, though that seemed unlikely for a young couple with a baby and strong family connections? The questions haunted their relatives, who never gave up hope, never stopped searching, never stopped wondering what became of Dean, Tina, and little Holly. This enduring uncertainty is a special kind of torment. Then, a breakthrough, decades later, born from the grim discovery of unidentified remains. In January 1981, the bodies of a man and a woman were found in a wooded area in Houston, Texas. They had been murdered. For years they were John and Jane Doe, their identities unknown, their stories untold. The connection to the missing Klaus family wouldn't be made for another 40 years, a testament to the slow, painstaking work of investigators and the advances in forensic genealogy. It was through genetic genealogy, a powerful tool that has cracked numerous cold cases, that the remains were finally identified in 2021 as Dean and Tina Klaus. 40 years. 40 years their families had waited, wondered, and grieved without knowing. The identification brought a measure of closure, an answer to the agonizing question of what had happened to Dean and Tina. They had been victims of a brutal crime. But this discovery also raised an even more pressing question. What happened to baby Holly? If her parents had been murdered, where was she? Was she also a victim, her tiny remains never found? Or had something else happened to her? The investigators, armed with the identities of her parents, now had a new, urgent focus. The details of how Holly ended up with her adoptive family are still somewhat shrouded in mystery, though it seems she was left at a church by members of a nomadic religious group. Two women believed to be part of this group brought Holly to the church, indicating her parents had joined their group and no longer wanted her. This explanation, given what we now know about Dean and Tina's fate, is deeply disturbing and raises further questions about this group and their potential knowledge or involvement. Holly's discovery was a miracle, a beacon of light in a very dark story. But it also brought with it a complex emotional landscape for her and her biological family, who had mourned her loss for so long. The reunion, the piecing together of a lost history, the coming to terms with the murder of her parents, it's an immense burden, an incredible journey of discovery and healing. Her survival is a testament to resilience, but also a stark reminder of the crime that set her life on such an unexpected path. While Holly has been found, the murder of Dean and Tina Klaus remains unsolved. Who killed them, and why? Was it connected to this religious group? Were they targeted for some other reason? The joy of finding Holly is tempered by the ongoing quest for justice for her parents. Their killers are still out there, or perhaps have passed away, taking their secrets with them. The Klaus family's story is one of profound tragedy but also of incredible hope and the enduring power of family bonds, even across decades of separation and silence. Chapter 4. The Brewery Baron's Bloody End, the Richard Oland Mystery. Richard Oland. The name itself carries weight in Canada, synonymous with the Moosehead Brewery dynasty, one of the country's wealthiest and most prominent families. He was a man of considerable means, a well-known figure in St. John, New Brunswick. His life seemed to be one of privilege and success. Yet, on July 7, 2011, that life came to a brutal and shocking end, not in some far-flung dangerous locale, but in the presumed safety of his own office. The discovery was horrific. Richard Oland had been bludgeoned to death, sustaining multiple injuries. The scene inside his investment firm office must have been gruesome, a stark contrast to the orderly world of finance and business he inhabited. Such a violent end for a man of his stature immediately sent shockwaves through the community and across the nation. Who would commit such a savage act and why? The questions began to pile up almost immediately. The investigation quickly focused on Richard Oland's inner circle. In high-profile cases involving wealthy families, suspicion often falls on those closest to the victim, those who might have a motive, financial or otherwise. And in this case, the spotlight soon turned to Richard's son, Dennis Oland. The relationship between father and son was reportedly complex, strained by financial matters and differing personalities. This family dynamic became a central theme in the unfolding drama. Dennis Oland was the last known person to see his father alive, having visited him at his office on the evening of July 6th. This fact, combined with alleged financial motives, Dennis was said to be deeply in debt, and circumstantial evidence, led investigators to believe they had their man. The evidence against him included a sports jacket he wore that day, which was later found to have minuscule bloodstains and DNA that matched his father's profile. The subsequent legal proceedings were a media sensation. Dennis Oland was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. His first trial in 2015 was lengthy and complex, dissecting the family's affairs, the forensic evidence, and Dennis's statements to police. The jury ultimately found him guilty, a verdict that stunned many and further divided public opinion. He was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 10 years. However, the story didn't end there. Dennis Oland maintained his innocence, and his legal team appealed the conviction. In 2016, the New Brunswick Court of Appeal overturned the guilty verdict, citing errors in the trial judge's instructions to the jury regarding Dennis's incorrect statement to police about the jacket he was wearing. A new trial was ordered. This development added another layer of complexity and uncertainty to an already convoluted case. The retrial, which concluded in 2019, was heard by a judge alone without a jury. This time, the outcome was different. Dennis Oland was found not guilty. The judge, Justice Terence Morrison, concluded that while Dennis may have had the opportunity and perhaps even a motive, the Crown had not proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. The key piece of evidence, the blood-stained jacket, was scrutinized intensely, with the defense arguing the contamination of the crime scene and the jacket itself. Dennis Oland's exoneration left a gaping hole at the center of the case. If he didn't kill his father, then who did? The question that had plagued investigators from the beginning returned with renewed force. The Oland family, already fractured by the tragedy and the subsequent accusations, was left without definitive answers. The immense resources of the police investigation had led them down a path that ultimately resulted in an acquittal. The murder of Richard Oland remains officially unsolved. The brutal nature of his death suggests a crime of passion, of intense rage. Was it a business deal gone wrong? A personal vendetta? Or was there another hidden motive that investigators failed to uncover? The lack of a clear alternative suspect after Dennis's acquittal has only deepened the mystery. The St. John Police Force has stated the file remains open, but with no new leads, the path to justice is unclear. For the Oland family, the ordeal has been immense. The loss of a patriarch, the accusation and trial of a son, the public scrutiny, it's a burden almost too heavy to bear. Regardless of guilt or innocence in the eyes of the law, the family fabric has been irreparably torn. The wealth and prominence that once defined them now share space with this dark, unresolved chapter in their history. Richard Oland's office, the scene of his violent death, stands as a silent testament to the brutality that occurred within its walls. The questions linger, casting a long shadow over the city of St. John and the legacy of the Oland family. Who had the motive, the means, and the opportunity to end Richard Oland's life in such a savage manner? And will the truth ever be known? This is a mystery that continues to haunt, a chilling reminder that even within the highest echelons of society, darkness can strike with devastating force. Chapter 5. Decades of Darkness, A Final Truth, The Christine Jessup Story. Christine Jessup was just 9 years old when she was abducted from her home in Queensville, Ontario, in October 1984. A bright, happy child, her disappearance sent a wave of terror through her small community and beyond. The thought of a child being snatched from the perceived safety of her own neighborhood is every parent's worst nightmare. Her story is one that would unfold over decades, marked by tragedy, a devastating miscarriage of justice, and finally, a long-delayed truth. The initial search for Christine was frantic and widespread. Volunteers and police scoured the area, hoping to find her safe. But as days turned into weeks, that hope began to fade. Then, on New Year's Eve, more than 2 months after she vanished, her body was discovered in a field some 50 kilometers from her home. She had been sexually assaulted and murdered. The horrific nature of her death amplified the grief and outrage, and the pressure to find her killer was immense. The investigation soon focused on a neighbor of the Jessup family, Guy Paul Moran. There was little concrete evidence linking him to the crime, some fibers, questionable eyewitness testimony, and a confession that Moran vehemently denied making, claiming it was coerced. Despite the shaky foundation of the case against him, the police and prosecution were convinced of his guilt. The community, desperate for an arrest, largely supported this conviction. Moran was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. His first trial in 1986 ended in an acquittal, a verdict that shocked many and angered the Jessup family. However, the Crown appealed, and a new trial was ordered. This time, in 1992, Guy Paul Moran was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. He had spent years under a cloud of suspicion, and now he was facing the rest of his life behind bars for a crime he insisted he did not commit. Throughout his ordeal, Moran maintained his innocence. His family and a dedicated group of supporters campaigned tirelessly for his release, pointing to the inconsistencies in the evidence and the possibility of a wrongful conviction. The case became a focal point for discussions about the fallibility of the justice system, the dangers of tunnel vision in investigations, and the reliability of forensic evidence available at the time. Then came the advent of more sophisticated DNA testing. In the early 1990s, this technology was still relatively new in its application to criminal cases. Moran's lawyers fought for DNA testing on semen samples found on Christine's underwear, evidence that had been preserved from the crime scene. The results were definitive. The DNA did not belong to Guy Paul Moran. In January 1995, he was exonerated and officially cleared of all charges. He had spent 18 months in prison for a crime he didn't commit. The exoneration of Guy Paul Moran was a landmark moment, highlighting a profound failure of the justice system. It also meant that Christine Jessup's real killer was still out there, had been free for over a decade while an innocent man was pursued and imprisoned. The search for justice for Christine had to begin anew, but this time, investigators had a crucial piece of evidence, the killer's DNA profile. For years, that DNA profile remained unidentified, a silent witness to the killer's identity. The case went cold again, Another layer of tragedy for the Jessup family who had endured so much. They had believed Morin was guilty, and his exoneration reopened old wounds, leaving them once again without answers, without justice for Christine. The weight of this uncertainty must have been immense, a constant reminder of their loss and the system's failings. Then, in October 2020, more than 36 years after Christine's murder, came a stunning announcement. Using advanced genetic genealogy techniques, investigators had finally identified Christine Jessup's killer, Calvin Hoover. Hoover was a friend of the Jessup family, someone who knew Christine, someone who had been in their circle of trust. The betrayal inherent in this discovery is almost unimaginable. The chilling postscript to this identification was that Calvin Hoover had died by suicide in 2015. He would never face earthly justice for his horrific crime. However, the identification provided a definitive answer, a name and a face to the monster who had stolen Christine's life, and destroyed so many others in the process. It was a bittersweet resolution, bringing a form of closure but also fresh pain and questions about how he had evaded detection for so long. The case of Christine Jessup is a harrowing journey through the darkest aspects of crime and the imperfections of justice. It's a story of a child's life brutally cut short, a man wrongfully convicted, and a truth that took decades to surface. It underscores the importance of perseverance, the power of scientific advancement, and the devastating impact that such crimes have on families and communities, an impact that ripples through generations. Christine's memory, and the fight for truth in her name, serves as a somber, vital lesson. Chapter 6. The Unsettling Silence. The stories we've explored today are more than just tales of mystery. They are stark reminders of the fragility of life and the enduring pain of the unknown. From the desolate Arizona desert where Adrienne Salinas met her end, to the digital void that seemingly swallowed Joshua Guo, each case leaves us with a profound sense of disquiet. The Klaus family's incredible journey, marked by murder and a miraculous reunion, the Olin family's unresolved tragedy, and the decades-long pursuit of truth for Christine Jessup, these narratives highlight the relentless quest for answers, even when they seem impossible to find. These aren't just cold cases, they are open wounds for the families left behind, for the communities shaken by these events. The silence that surrounds the perpetrators, the motives, the final moments, is a heavy burden. Yet, within that silence, there's also a persistent call for justice, for understanding. As we've seen, sometimes after years or even decades, breakthroughs can occur. New technologies, a fresh pair of eyes on old evidence, or someone finally coming forward with a crucial piece of information can change everything. The hope for resolution, however faint, never truly dies. These mysteries defy easy explanation, but they compel us to keep asking questions, to keep searching, to remember the victims not just for how they died, but for how they lived. Their stories challenge our sense of order and safety, but they also galvanize our collective desire for truth. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Hope you all have a great one out there. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.